Almost everyone uses auto-generated supports from their default slicer in order to support parts that require it, which are a whole bunch of different types of parts. But this is kind of the worst way of doing it. So in this video, we're going to talk about why auto-generated supports are just horrible, and also go through the multiple different solutions to either prepare for those supports or design entirely clean alternatives. Okay, so why do auto-generated supports suck? Well, at a very generic level, it's because they are the default. They are a generic solution. They are a catch-all solution. And a generic solution is fine, it works, but it always gives you kind of a generic result. This is especially true for designers who are creating parts that many different people will print on many different types of machines. If you are a designer, you don't want people to perceive your product as bad because the individual settings that they're using are not correct for that thing. You want that part to be printable just as is, so that somebody can just upload the model and print it regardless of what their device is. This also holds true for services. If you are wanting to mass produce a product or put it into a service like our print-on-demand teleport service, in that case, you want the part to be really reliable so that you're not worried across thousands of pieces of certain defects coming in. You can engineer to avoid certain common issues that auto-default, auto-generated stuff can create. So that's the reason to kind of avoid just the default support settings. It's fine if you're an individual and just doing a one-off, but for all professional use cases, you really want to tune supports in. And in order to do that, you want to be totally isolated from the slicer itself. So there's two ways to actually do this. The very first one is to prep the part to be supported. This is going through a couple of different tricks to where supports end up where you want them to be or not at all. And then the other one is to actually design the supports from scratch yourself inside of CAD or through a couple of different solutions. So let's go ahead and look at that first category. If you're prepping a part for support, obviously the very best solution is to design the part to need no supports at all. This could be something as simple as just rotating it 45 degrees. If you have a cube, chamfer the outer edge, turn it sideways 45 degrees, and now it needs no support at all. It just prints up on a corner and it's stronger, looks better, and you have no supports anywhere that need to be removed. That's an optimal solution. You can also chamfer edges so there are no direct 90-degree overhangs, all kinds of things. And we go through all of this in a separate video where we talk about how to design parts so you don't really need supports. But if you do need supported areas, there's a couple of things you can do. Say you have something like a tooth in a dragon. We have this default model here that is just to demonstrate that. With this sort of a situation, what you want to do is actually create a support thumbtack. And you can either move this in there in a program like 3D Builder where you just position an STL and then merge them, or you can design it in CAD yourself. And basically that is to take a single little spike out of the bottom of that spike and then give it a broad lower surface. This catches all the support and gives it a nice firm foundation, and then that cone of the tooth can grow out of that. These types of pins are really, really useful because the failure of auto-generated support is that it doesn't actually touch the part. So these type of overhang pieces, when they're first growing, the tooth is just coming up like this and has nothing around it holding it vertical. It can start to rotate and fall into the support, into the nest around it, so that you end up with weird aberrations on the side of the part. But if you use this thumbtack method, you know it's held all the time, always, so you don't have to worry about it suddenly kind of settling into the support and causing features on the outside of the surface that would be undesirable. But let's get into the real meat. You don't want to use auto-generated supports at all. Get rid of them, they just leave hangy-draggy messes all over the place. You want to actually design supports into your part so that you can upload it and know that it comes out exactly as you intended. In this case, what you can do is you can just design a piece of support that is offset from the part. You can use the offset tool inside of your CAD program, or you can model it, or you can use a negative inside of something like 3D Builder to kind of create it and then scale it down. There's a lot of ways of getting the modeling done, but this is basically you just design a piece underneath it that contours to the shape of the part so that it supports the part as it's being made. And that way you know that the overhang is supported exactly as you intended, you can verify it, and that's fine. The problem with this is that you are restricted to very certain types of materials and parts. It's not always universal, because if you set the settings just a little bit off, then material expansion might be an issue, the machine might still be an issue. The best solution is to give spacing of about 0.2 to 0.3 millimeters, and then test a couple of times to verify. And of course, if you were designing exclusively for a particular machine or a particular service or method, then once you know kind of the feel for it, you know the rules of it all, then you can design everything that way and you can throw up whatever you want and you know it will work. But if you're on your first try, you want to verify it after a couple of tries. Quick side bubble on the design support and the thumbtack. If you're using the thumbtack as we had in this case, you actually have to have support generated up underneath it. And while it's great for defining that support, it's still a really tall, thin piece of support, which can fall over and create a failure, which we actually ran into during this video. But if you use design support, you can actually use the support comb methodology to where you have these small sprues reaching out of the main part, holding up that support. So you know the support is really reliable and really fixed in the position where it needs to be, and you don't have to worry about the printer knocking it over and losing that support, which would cause a print failure. So again, being able to design makes you ensure that the part will print successfully. That's kind of the obvious version of designed support, which is to just replace generic support with the designed support. And that's fine, and it works fine, but it is kind of a lot of work. But with design support, you're actually able to get some benefits that you otherwise wouldn't have from standard support. You can have minimized material, and you can support areas that you just need to support. Again, auto-generated will put it wherever the auto-generation decides it should go. With design support, you get to place it explicitly where it's necessary so that you get something really good. The other way to kind of prep a part to not really need support or to reduce it is to actually use a support fin. A support fin basically is just meant to increase the base contact area of the part. So with that cube, if you rotate it 45 degrees, it's fine, it's symmetrical. But what if you have something long and skinny? If we go back to our demo part, if we just rotated it around a little bit weirdly, now you don't have support on that tooth there anymore. But now if you try to print it just like that, it's gonna fall over because its center of gravity is too far to the left. There's a bunch of mass sitting out to the side that wants to fall over as it's being printed. So you want to design a support fin underneath there. And a support fin, you can design it to where it's basically just a triangular prism underneath there that is spaced off from the part. But again, you're dealing with that settling problem to where the part could fall over into the support in just that little space between the support and the piece itself, so it's still removable, that you don't want to actually do that. Instead, add just a few little prongs through there that are about 0.5 millimeter thick and 0.5 to 1 millimeter wide that are perfectly horizontal so that they are a single layer into the side of the part. These hold the part stable and make sure that it doesn't fall or settle into the support, which means that you again have a really reliable piece. But here's the trick with this. You want to make sure that this support fin is also removable. In order to do that, it needs to be able to bend and flex. You can make it really thin, but if you do that, you need to give it a wide base so that it doesn't unpeel from the bed. You can make it fat. In that case, just make sure to chamfer or fillet the front of it so that when somebody is removing it, they can bend and twist and break off all of those little tines that are holding the part stable, or snip it off and get access to it. You don't want to bury them in the middle of a really thick support fin. But that's the design of a support fin, and now you're able to print the part at a diagonal angle and you don't have to worry about it potentially falling over or anything like that. You can also use these type of support fins to just give more rigidity to like really tall, thin pieces. And again, we go through this in a whole separate video. Okay, that's the overhang for the tooth. It's the one that could kind of need like a really optimized type of design. But what if you're just trying to support like a bridged area, something like a tunnel through a cube? We'll do this really simple example here. With this one, literally, since most machines can bridge 1 to 2 inches pretty readily, you don't need a ton of support in here. You can just insert a little cube. Now, many people would model just a solid cube. That's not really very desirable because it can be tough to remove depending on how big it is. You want to make sure that this part can be removed. Make sure that the top has like a 0.2 clearance and the bottom has a 0.2 to 0.3 clearance as well. This is kind of the generic sort of dimensions, but again, test based on the material and systems that you're using. But if you have a solid cube in there, do put some text on the side that says support so that post-processors know how to remove it. This is one of the cool advantages of designing support. You get to put instructions there that your customers can use. Kind of like removing shipping screws or tape and that kind of stuff inside of a machine when you receive it. Things that hold it stable in shipping, you might want that support to arrive at your customer and then they pluck it out. In that case, you want to define it as support so they can't mess it up. But if you want it to be more easily removable than a solid brick, which can be quite difficult, instead, you can actually just cut a hole through it. Now it's crushable. If somebody crushes that with some pliers, the two sides will collapse in and then it plucks straight out. That's very, very easy. Now, if for some reason you have a part that is too large to do that kind of just cut through design, because it is bridging itself, of course, then you want a solid support inside of there, that's fine. Just make sure that that support is removable, which means that you probably need the ability to twist it. So again, in this case, don't make it a solid rectangle, make sure to chamfer the edges of it, and now you still get to have your text telling people that it's support. It's more easy to remove. All of the optimizations are there. So there's a number of different directions to go with this, depending on what your actual use case is. But again, engineer it how you feel is best to accommodate the instructions, the crushability and the removability, and whatever sort of intention you want with that. You're designing support, so design it. Okay, if you're not really that good at CAD, but you just want to use a service like Teleport, but you don't like the auto-generated results, then you can design the supports yourself without having to design them. The way this works is we're going to use the default example of Prusa. Prusa Slicer allows you to export 3 supports as a solid 3D model. And this is an interesting thing that most people are not aware of. If you go into the standard FDM settings of Prusa Slicer and then change the system over to an SLA printer, and then you can turn on tree supports and define them to be fat and thick because we're dealing with FDM parts. And with those fat and thick supports, you can generate them automatically, and now you have a really clean and pure model that can now be exported as an STL so that all your geometry is in place. It's not a tool path or exporting the G code. You're actually exporting the tree supports. They're a little bit weird because they're not always quite dense enough, but this is a really good way of auto-generating supports, making sure they're placed where you as the designer intend them to be, and then you can upload them to a service or share them with your community so that they can print them, and you know that they don't need to generate supports themselves. So, if you don't want to go through all the CAD, then you can actually auto-generate supports, control where those land because you're familiar with the slicer, and export those designed supports to be used by someone else. And again, the point of using design supports is to make sure that you as the designer get the result that you intended. Auto-generated supports are fine if you're at home or in your garage. Go quick draft them out there and pick at them for 3 hours. Be my guest. But if you are distributing it across thousands of people or making thousands of parts, then you want to optimize it. And auto-generated generic solutions are not the way to get to an optimal solution, to where you have a really good, crisp result for any of your users or any of the buyers of your product. So hopefully this video was useful to you about how to design supports so that you're not beholden to the auto-generated gods. And you can check out our other videos to see other nifty solutions about how to design those supports as well. And hopefully that will help you improve how you create your own 3D printed products in future. Have a great day, everybody.